understand that if Trump couldn't win, I wish they'd let him run. Okay, I don't think he's going to be sufficiently healthy in another 3 years to do anything. But he would lose so bad, and I don't look. The Supreme Court, the language of the 22nd Amendment couldn't be any clearer. I don't think they give a shit. The language of the 14th Amendment couldn't be any clearer. John Roberts don't give a shit. What do Clarence Thomas give him a RV to go to Nebraska football game?
Now, for our favorite segment, the listener questions. They are so good. Bree in Belleville, Illinois, James, says, when Trump's current momentum, will it shift someday to Vance or someone like Stephen Miller when he's gone?
And I don't know what order the show is, so if it's in a different order. What I keep hearing is the people that know these issues, particularly national security and foreign policy, is just are more afraid of Vance than they are Trump. Because Trump he just does whatever he wants. He's a pretty stupid. Vance is anything but, and they think he's a real threat. I presumably, but let's just say, I don't want to wish this on anybody, but Trump just was not president in a week, and Vance was there. Apparently, Vance will be able to say he was picked by Donald Trump, which I think would give him a huge leg up, unless Trump, which you don't know, he would don't know what he would say, or if he would say somebody else, and that would have a huge effect. But there is no Republican Party. I can't emphasize that enough. We talk about Ronald Reagan. There's Donald Trump and Ronald Reagan. It couldn't be any more unlike people.
Totally. James, I got a prediction, which is it's 3 years away, so it's always safe to make because hopefully no one will remember. I think Trump will give J.D. Vance his blessing, and I think his ask or his condition will be he picks Donald Jr. as his running mate. And I don't think that's out of the, no one could be, well, there are people who are less qualified, but he's on top of the list. Trump will not want that Trump name to go away. His ego is still.
Yeah, I don't. You tell me anything, and the one thing you know about J.D. Vance, he ain't gonna say no.
Right? Yeah, we've seen that.
But people, I'm surprised at the number of people that I talk to that are knowledgeable, and particularly in areas that I'm not that knowledgeable in, that say that Vance scares them more than Trump.
Yeah. That leads us to John's from Santa Monica, the great Santa Monica. And he says, what do you know about the so-called plan that Steve Bannon has for Trump to run for president as a third term in 2028? John, let me just say this. It is not going to happen. There is no way, Jose. It just is not. We waste a lot of time, a lot of chop down too many trees or whatever they do for desktops and laptops. It's not going to happen. Bannon talks about, Vance getting the nomination. Trump is it's just all conjecture from people who like to have fun. So, Donald Trump at most has 3 more years. Goddamn, that's a frightening thought.
I get that question sometimes, and I get almost irritated by it. You understand that if Trump couldn't win, I wish they'd let him run. Okay, I don't think he's anywhere close going to be sufficiently healthy in another over 3 years to do anything. But he would lose so bad, and I don't look. The Supreme Court, language of the 22nd Amendment couldn't be any clearer. I don't think they give a shit. The language of the 14th Amendment couldn't be any clearer.
Right.
You think that they cared if this is if this would protect corporate power? John Roberts don't give a shit. What do you be? Clarence Thomas give him a RV to go to Nebraska football game, or Leo give him a fishing trip or whatever he wants. But they're not going to do that because they know that Trump would get slaughtered. The only way he won was that we almost forced people to vote for him. And annoyed would he been elected in 2024 is we ran today. There's no way he would win an election. No,
absolutely. James, John in Chicago says, do you think it'll come down to Trump asking the military to protect him?
to protect him from. I mean, John, I think what you're saying is from arrest, or I mean, I'm not.
You're right. The question is not clear, but I think it's but take off, because the military and Trump is a fascinating relationship. I think maybe the better question is, will the military stand up to him at some point?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, first of all, those guys are so trained to follow civilian authority,
Right.
and it would have to be a pretty extraordinary reach of presidential power. This guy, he goes on look, he's pretty popular in the rank and file. That's something. All he talks about is the magnetic launch as opposed to the steam launch or the elevators on the aircraft carrier. I mean, at least as if the Navy didn't test this. I mean, that one thing I know about the military, maybe the Navy as much as anything, they test things 100,000 times before they're going to change a launch system on an aircraft carrier or an elevator. If you stop and you think about it, an elevator is a real critical part of an aircraft carrier, because if you can't get the aircraft on the deck, you're not going to do any good. But I don't know, but it'd have to be something pretty extraordinary. Now, what they're doing is they're leaving, they're retiring. I don't know what the effect of this is on training, particularly at the. I don't think it's going to affect enlisted training very much. But I don't know if service academies, maybe in a couple of years we need to see if there's been a real effect, because a lot of these people are leaving. They don't want to be part of this.
Right. Roger.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Roger in Los Angeles says, why didn't the Democrats do anything to prepare for this unbelievable situation where one man could break an entire country? Roger, I think you cast your net too far. I think in 2016, Hillary Clinton, who should have been the Democratic nominee, just ran a really bad campaign. She should have beaten Donald Trump. But the villain this last time was very simple. It's Joe Biden. Joe Biden said he would serve as a bridge. He was aging, clearly. I saw the other day that Hunter was furious at Obama for helping him off the stage at that LA event in 2024. For God's sakes, he needed to be helped off the stage. He was a doddering old man. And if Joe Biden, I'll go to my deathbed thinking if Joe Biden hadn't run, there would have been a competitive primary. Some Democrat would have prevailed and beaten Trump. But I think the Democrats as a party have a lot of problems, to be sure. But I think the primary responsibility for Trump today rests with Joe Biden.
That's like saying I'm going to go to my death believing in gravity.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
I mean, and we'll talk about in terms of Hunter Biden. Look, he did some really stupid goddamn things. Said $50,000 a month from the Ukrainian energy company. I mean, if he cared so much about his father, it looks like he wouldn't have done so much shit to embarrass him.
Absolutely.
Getting him on the phone and whatever. And I don't criticize President Biden for pardoning his own son. I think he was a target of malicious prosecution, but I think he was guilty of some shit. Okay,
Yeah.
He wasn't like Chelsea Clinton or
Right.
Obama
Right.
or anything like that. He was not.
Right.
He traded on his family name, but it would look like after you've gone through all of that, you would do the simple thing and just shut the fuck up.
Speaking of that, James, that leads us to the next question from Michael in Maquon, Illinois, who says, is it time for Kamala Harris to step off the stage? Why does she seem like she's going for a comeback?
Well, okay. Be very clear here. No one that had anything to do with 2024, no Democrat wants to hear from you. Not we all voted for you, okay? Not Hunter Biden, not Harris, not Tim Walz, not the consultants, not anything. The 2024 has left such a lingering bad taste in Democrats. We just get out of the way. That's what I believe.
Next, John in Gurnee, Illinois asks, would it do any good for members of the Supreme Court bar to start resigning in protest of the court's horrible decision? wouldn't do much good. It's not going to happen. These are people who have clients who argue before the court. I do think, however, that critics should not let up. I think that this Republican Supreme Court, they're going to probably undo the final vestiges of the Voting Rights Act. They have let Trump get away with just horrible things, going back to their first decision, which encouraged a lot of this in June of 2024. So I don't think the bar members resigning would help, but I think the criticism ought to be direct. It ought to be, high level. But what this court's doing is, somebody wrote the other day, I think it was Ron Brownstein, it goes back to what the right-wing court was doing, at the turn of the last century, when they were trying to undo all the progressive measures.
Well, I look, these guys arrogant. They are there at the service of corporate power and the Republican Party. I would remind our viewers that nowhere is it written that it's a statute that says you have to have 9. It's not a constitutional provision. I don't think the Democrats need to run on that, but if they win, just jack up the number to 13. Why not?
Mitch McConnell let it be at 8 for the entire year of 2016.
I mean, if this is what they're going to do, then why are we stuck with this shit? And if they say it can't go to 13, then send a goddamn army in and take them out, of which the commander-in-chief could do. But it's a very serious, very, very serious problem.